And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to something a little bit different, something special. Welcome to the 2v2, or I should say, uThermal's 2v2 Circuit January 2025 edition replay cast. I'm, of course, your live VIP. With me, I'm joined by these amazing people in the chat, as well as all these amazing players and my plushies as well. Welcome, one and all, to again a 2v2 tournament. It's a bit of a rarity here on the CranKy Ducklings, and I will fix up the title. Hold on. I got you covered. I got you covered. But yeah, it is a bit of a rarity that we do have here on the CranKy Ducklings. But 2v2 events and team game tournaments have been on the rise as of late. Over the past maybe 6 months or so, maybe even past 4 months, we've seen some of these tournament organizers kind of like pique their interest in team games and in these tournaments and host them more regularly. And it's been really exciting to see this format gain traction once again. It's been a while. It's been a long time since 2v2 has really had any major competitive circuit or any kind of really any thoughts taken seriously when it comes to 2v2 as a format. So yeah, recently we've been having, of course, Wardy. He's been hosting his team game events. Ursasaurus alongside Steadfast, they've been hosting their events, and now uThermal has stepped into the ring as well. Oh boy, here we go. Now again, this is a replay cast. These events did take place less than a week ago. We were there at the time. We were there, of course, as always, but we were busy adminning. Shout out to Kuro, shout out to Kerwin, and myself as well. The three of us, we were adminning this event. Because of that, we could not cast it live at the time. Instead, uThermal, he was actually competing in the event and then covering it later on, at least covering the semifinals. So yeah, with that, we were able to, at least, be there for the event, but we weren't able to cover it ourselves until now. We have the replays, and now we can go into the coverage, into our matches. Let's go, Pappy, let's go. As you can imagine, when it comes to the replays that we were provided, we have all of uThermal's games. He was kind enough to provide them to us, so big shout out to Mark, aka uThermal. As up first, we have uThermal and Goblin going up against a more amateur team. Again, uThermal did team up with Goblin. They did stream their POV at the time. There were some big teams getting involved here in this tournament, like Wayne versus Milky Cow, Wayne and Milky Cow. We had Big Gabe and Status, and we also had, I want to say, Spirit and Max and Clement Trigger. So a lot of really fun duos, a lot of really competitive teams did take place in this event. Also, I should reiterate as well, this was funded by uThermal's community, and I believe uThermal, he has funding to host this event for the foreseeable future, and it's going to be a monthly tournament. It's going to be a monthly event, and there were so many signups to this tournament as well. The reason why he enlisted our help to admin is because there were over 100, or I would say just around 100 players. Around 100 players did take part in this event, and we had to make sure that, especially because a lot of the players that competed, it was their first time competing. Like a lot of them were just uThermal's viewers, and maybe they hadn't made lobbies before, or done vetoes before, or gone through the server selection before, and just a little bit less experienced in that kind of aspect of StarCraft. So we were there to make sure that everyone knew what was going on, to make sure that everyone was able to find each other as well, and make sure that everything was running as smoothly as possible. So bam, honestly, it was really fun. It was really fun running the event. And now we can jump into the matches themselves. Also, a big shout out to OP Zesty in the chat. Pappy God, thank you so much for the raid. Hope you had a great stream. Hope you had a great ladder session. And hope you had a great time. Welcome, one and all, to the replay cast of uThermal's 2v2 Circuit. Likewise, also a big shout out to Heisenberg as well. Thank you so much earlier for resubscribing for 4 months. Thank you. Thank you so much, as we are about to jump into our first game of the night. Alright, gonna be jumping into our first game. Again, following uThermal and Goblin as they dive into a PvZ, kind of. Here we go. And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Arctic Flowers LE, we have the Croatian Terran player, not Brodos. He is rolling Terran. Likewise, alongside his teammates, we have Goblin and uThermal. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have their opponents. We have the duo between Fluffy and Peekaboo. When it comes to the intros, they are going to be looking a little bit scuffed. Do apologize for that, but It's fine. It'll be fine, Pappy. It'll be fine. The application that we use for intros doesn't really like the 2v2 format, so it breaks a little bit. It'll be fine. As we said, Lynn. Okay, so first we have a TVT here. I should say TVT. We have a Terran duo here from uThermal and Goblin. I'll be honest, I'm not really too familiar with Goblin's off-race, so I don't really know what to expect. Likewise, the 2v2 meta is very different as well. Typically, I want to say, especially in a longer later game on larger maps, Terran and Protoss teams are ideal, just because Protoss, they can embrace Skytoss, Terran can embrace Mech, and they work very well together here in unison. And we'll be getting there, I'm sure, later on in the event. But now, Double Terran is going to be an interesting duality here. Likewise, across the map, we have our Zerg and Protoss as well, getting into our openers. Hatch, Gas Pool, Standard Opener out of Peekaboo. Fluffy, likewise, going for a Gate Expand. Everything looking as it should. Again, I'm unfamiliar with Peekaboo and Fluffy. I don't know what skill level they are, but when it comes to the openers, they are quite standard, quite crisp, so they at least know how they're getting into this. Meanwhile, from the side of the Terran here, we do have our follow-up. Okay, we have our initial Raxes into our factories, double gas openers into a delayed CC. So for the time being, we have both uThermal and Goblin. They're going for more tech-heavy starts. They're being safe as well. If they were being cheese, for example, they would have units to defend back at home. They'd be quite secure. They're mirroring each other. When it comes to Arctic Flowers, I'll be honest, I do know that the 2-2 and the team game map pool was updated relatively recently. I have not played any team games since then, so I believe this is a new map because I've never seen this before. I've never quite seen this map before. Interesting. We have some gold bases here on the low ground, which could be taken. Likewise, a bit of a more open center of the map as well. We have speed zones. Okay. We don't see too many of those in StarCraft anymore, so I appreciate it. We have some speed zones that are set up. Likewise, more fringe bases. Our naturals are quite secure, bearing in mind that both players are sharing the main base and sharing their natural as well, so again, they are quite secure on their two base setups here. Oh, as Goblin is going for a CC across... No shot. Mate, that's an eBay on the way. Is Goblin going to be floating the CC into the main and going for a planetary rush? No shit. Goblin, he's an animal, Pappy. Aye, aye, aye. Okay, so we have the CC on the way, and again, outside of a planetary, I don't see a reason as to do this. We do see another CC on the right-hand side, which was delayed. Looks like uThermal and Goblin are both attempting planetary rushes, but uThermal CC was delayed. We do have additional SCVs on the way. Yep, there we go. We do have a backup SCV on the way here. uThermal is going to be a little bit later when it comes to zone matchup, and they're saying that... Stay away. Don't humiliate us. No planetary rushes, por favor. Oh my god. They're animals, Pappy. They're animals. They're clowning. As the CC is done. With that, should be soon floating into the main base. There we go. It does lift, does float on in. And the armies have arrived. Going to be forcing a Fluffy back. Likewise, Lings did a mass. They did force a cancel on the CC of uThermal. So only one planetary, what should have been two. And these things, they can try to collapse on the army. Up, go for the surround. Nice catch. They get one of the Hellions, two more to escape. The Cyclone barely does survive. And last, they're forcing uThermal and Goblin back. Meanwhile, Planetary is on the way. In between the bases. The lock-ons are brutal. There's a scan, maintaining that lock-on. And the Stalker does go down. Yeah, brutal losses here. Second Stalker falls. A couple of boys are being pulled. They'll repair, they'll buffer. The lock-ons. As Protoss is forced further back, and the Stalkers are going down. Here comes the laser. They at least shut down the buyer. They don't quite save the Stalker. Stalker does still fall, but the Lings, they should at least clean up the Cyclones. They got one. Up. Oh my god, once again, good movement. I do appreciate the movement here with the Lings. You're getting this around, taking down the Hellions, taking down the Cyclones. SCVs are falling as well. Meanwhile, what about the Planetary? As it is still on the way. No, sorry, it's done. Planetary is done, morphing in those SCVs. And it's catching reinforcements. The SCVs are there to repair. This is going to be so annoying to deal with. Imagine if there were two Planetaries, by the way. Imagine if uThermal got away with his own opener as well. Ugh. As the Planetary is done. Back at home. Bearing in mind, this is still one base. True. They still have yet to expand. So Fluffy Peekaboo, they still have the greater economy. Getting a third expansion. as there's still no natural from the Terran duo. And as long as they can deal with this planetary, they should be okay. Force to focus down those SCVs. Some Link support would be nice, as these are expensive losses here for Fluffy. Nice Blink control. Okay. Pulls away without. Oh god, the planetary range is brutal. As we do see Goblin intentionally targeting down the weakened Stalkers. SCV pops out. Where's the Link support? As again, this is not the most efficient trade here from Fluffy. As he will lose so many Stalkers in the process. Does hold, does shut it down. Roach production has begun from Peekaboo. Supply box just now breaking out. Nice catch. Forcing back the Hellions. Hellions get forced back. When it comes to our setup here, it looks like uThermal is going to Mech and Goblin is going to Bio. So both headed in different directions. Nidus on the way. Let's go. And again, as I mentioned before, now that the Zerg and Protoss duo have defended, I mean, they have the better economy. They're on 2 bases. They're getting their 3rd bases fully saturated. They can outproduce the Terran opponents. And without a sole defensive line, I mean, there's potential here with the Nidus. There's potential for aggression. Here we go. So setting up their counterattack. Fluffy moving out. Links are borrowed in the... Let's go. Peekaboo, let's go. We have Links borrowed in all the French bases. Army gets spotted. No tanks. Without any tanks here, I mean, again, how do we hold on? Assuming that the Roaches do come in to reinforce as well. We're waiting for the Nidus Worm. Here we go, Nidus into the main. Roaches, they do pop out. At least a handful of them. SCVs are falling at the same time. Massive dive here on the army. Oof. Not quite too successful though. The Cyclones, they hold their own. Stalkers being forced back. SCVs doing a great job at buffering. But more Roaches, they keep popping out. And the SCV count here, it's plummeting. It's plummeting for Goblin. Goblin, he barely has an economy. Barely any SCVs here at the natural. Barely anything in the main. Yeah, Goblin is down to 8 SCVs. And the tunneling claws. It's Pappy, you try to clown on us, we clown on you. Este Goblin and uThermal. With that Goblin, I mean, he barely has an economy. uThermal still maintains his own 2 base economy, true. He's on 2 bases. He has a setup. Nidus behind the mineral line. Once again, pulling the players out of position. We're quite ready. Nidus is going to be denied. And now Fluffy's reinforcing. Unfortunately, there was no robot, there was no war prism, so it takes a long time for the reinforcements to arrive. Nidus behind the main base of uThermal. Looks like he does notice. At the same time, going for his own Hellion run by. Nidus is going to be dealt with. And here comes Fluffy. Going for the CC. Once again, I mean, the army's out of position. The army was busy in the main dealing with a Nidus Worm. Hellions, they do get into the mineral line. Blue from Hellions, they roast up those probes. But what about the main armies? As finally the Roaches, they come into play. Peekaboo and Fluffy, they come together. They dive in. GG gets called. And Fluffy and Peekaboo, they take game 1 against uThermal and Goblin. GG. Pappy. Let's go. GG, well played. Again, uThermal and Goblin, they are the heavy favorites. I mean, they are GMs. Fluffy and Peekaboo less so. But Pappy, you try to clown on some random players, and the karma was real. But again, as we were trying to point out, because of the planetary rushes, both uThermal and Goblin, they were stuck on 1 base. They were basically 1 base all in. They were 1 base all in. Unfortunately, they could not sustain themselves after they failed to break the defensive line of both Peekaboo and Fluffy. So after the defense, they got further and further ahead, and they thankfully did press their advantage. If Fluffy and Peekaboo were more passive, if they were more defensive, then they would have allowed uThermal and Goblin to actually recover, to get into their 2 bases and have a chance at actually fighting back in that game. But alas, they did not hold back whatsoever. The non-stop Nidus Worms, the Stalker aggression as well. With that, GG. GG, well played. The peak of Fluffy. They take a lead. To take a lead. who was funding this tournament? The community, I should say, uThermal's viewer base. So uThermal's viewer base, as he's a very large content creator, did get a lot of donations. A lot of donations were given to uThermal from his viewers, from his audience. And with that, does plan on hosting this monthly tournament for the foreseeable future here. Potentially the entire year. Potentially all 2025. We'll see. As spawning in the top left-hand corner, we have our favorite duo, and yeah, now we're playing on main races. After the defeat in game 1, they are bouncing back here in game number 2. We have uThermal and Goblin playing their main race. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have their opponents. We have the duo, the Zerg and Protoss duo of Peekaboo and Fluffy. Let's go. Let us go. Yo, I see uThermal in the chat. No cap, these guys are sick. I estay uThermal. But you were trying to clown on them with planetary rushes. You're an animal. Ay, ay, ay. Animal, papi. But we are going to be settling in to a map that I'm much more familiar with. Emerald City has been around for a very long, I want to say years at this point, like 2-3 years, maybe even more than that. I mean, the 2v2 map pool was stagnant for a very long time, but thankfully it is back. We did revitalize it in some ways, but Emerald City, it's still constant, still there. It'll always be there. Oh my god. We have some newer maps, but still some older maps as well. In the 2v2 ladder map pool, I mean. This time we do have Goblin opening up more economically. Interesting expansion pattern here, where we have Goblin expanding diagonally, and so does uThermal. Interesting. Do appreciate it. As they do cover their bases, likewise walling off early on as well. We have the Goblin wall here covering the main ramp, and the uThermal wall walling off here towards left-hand side to protect that natural base as well. So I love the unity here between Goblin and uThermal. I'm loving the synergy to set up. Meanwhile, we do have Fluffy going for the... Wait, what? Was there an SCD scout? Okay, there was. But we have Fluffy going for a ninja, quote-unquote ninja base. Oh, okay. Oh my god, they know what they're doing. I was very confused for a moment there. We have Peekaboo opening up with a faster third base here. Meanwhile, we have Fluffy expanding elsewhere. Now, this does mean that Fluffy's going to be more exposed. That is true. The base is going to be a lot more isolated, and because of that, it might be a little bit more difficult to protect and to defend. But this does solve the issue of trying to expand from the Zerg player and making sure the creep doesn't really get in the way of the Protoss. So yeah, an interesting take here on Emerald City. Like, they know what they're doing. I want to believe. Let's go. I don't watch enough competitive 2v2 to know if this is like the meta or not. I want to believe it is. I want to believe this is the meta. Here we go. Oh, right, yeah, for those that are curious, again, Goblin and uThermal. I know he's Mancheco Mark. Oh, El Mancheco, papi. Let's go. What server is this on? I thought we were Salsa Tequila. Maybe we're playing on EU. Maybe on, yeah, on Europa. Okay. So now we are going to be settling in. We do have an initial Stargate opener out of Goblin going into Phoenixes. I mean, Phoenix play has been quite trendy, or typically is quite trendy in the 2v2 meta as well. Going into Mass Phoenix can be very effective when it comes to harassing, when it comes to maintaining map control as well. Meanwhile, we do have uThermal once again embracing mech. We have Blue Flame on the way, tank production as well. Getting into his Hellion tank. And once again, fast burrow at a Peekaboo. Okay. I love how stylistic he is. We did see earlier that, of course, he was using borrowed links to delay and deny expansions, and likewise, of course, with tunneling claw roaches as well. So interesting to see him rush into burrow once again. It's not really going to be too applicable in the defense early on, but it is cool nonetheless. As uThermal does move in, Spine Claw is not done, the links have been amassing, does he get into the mineral line? Ooh. Barely not, but massive shots going off here on the Lings. Does bust in, drone's going to be going down. He gets one so far. He gets two. 3, 4 drones going to be falling. Getting up to 6, 7 drone kills. Ay. 7 workers go down. Unfortunately, the Protoss army wasn't quite here in time to defend. It was purely Ling. And with that, uThermal did wreak havoc and does look to cripple the economy of Peekaboo. Looking at the units tab here, Peekaboo down to 29 workers, is falling behind. And it's going to be on our Zerg player to recover, to redrone. But uThermal, he doesn't stop. Does not stop, keeps moving out. Meanwhile, second Stargate here for Goblin. Second Stargate into Robo. Into more Phoenix production. This time uThermal, he is intercepted. Okay. Fluffy's being active. Zones away the Hellions, does keep up. Behind this fast infestation. Wait, what's happening? Fast infestation into a Night Storm. I mean, Peekaboo barely has an economy to begin with, so I'm not too convinced with how quickly he's teching, considering the low drone count. But I see what you're doing here. I imagine this is going to be for Swarmhost Nidus. Interesting. Unfortunately, he was slowed down. He still has some droning to do, but we're getting there. And of course, if need be, Fluffy can always feed. He can always transfer minerals and gas. If Peekaboo does require it. Meanwhile, Hellions, they rotate once again. He's barely out of position. Phoenix, they bust into the mineral line. Probe's going to be going down. Yeah, uThermal and Goblin at the same time, they do harass. Nice borrow. Despite that, the Hellions, they will still do splash damage. So they are cleaned up. It's been 12 workers going down so far. 16 probes falling for Fluffy. I didn't realize just how many workers have fallen to those Phoenixes. That is a lot of damage. And as they've been taking those losses, we have seen both uThermal and Goblin building up. Getting to a heavy tank count. Massing out more Phoenixes. Fleet beacons on the way. That should be for Phoenix range. Into Sky Toss. And for the most part, it's on Goblin to harass and to scout and to figure out what's going on. We have a scan here across the map to hunt down those drones. More workers going down. How many workers are we down to? 34. Only 34 drones for Peekaboo. Not like this. How many swarm hosts? It's about to have 8. 8 swarm hosts. Phoenixes, they do hit the third base once again. Nothing to defend. Probes go down. This is where site defense can somewhat be useful. I say somewhat because the reality is, even if there are cannons and shield by these Phoenixes, they can just go in and dive anyway. But they can't lift buildings, of course. We have Fluffy pushing in. The tanks are on siege. He gets 1, he gets 2. Gets up to 3 tanks. Oh, massive tank blows to the face. Not the worst trade at the same time. Night Storm into the main. And going for the main base. Goblin losing his Nexus, potentially losing his production. Yeah, Fleet Beacon's going to go down. Massive pickoff, going for the Stargates as well. Forcing back Goblin. As Phoenix is a race back home. Very nice counterattack. And behind this, we should just be joining up Peekaboo. Oh, he's supply blocked. He's been losing his overlords. Unfortunately, his supply block has to build back up. Likewise, we have Fluffy taking into Archon production. A little bit delayed here, but Archons are on the horizon. Still no static defense. Part of me would love to see, I wonder if it's viable here to like spread creep with a drop a lord in the mineral line and then drop a spore. And maybe throw down a tumor, I guess. But to try to set up spores here, as they would help so much here in holding on. Just trying to get creative with with 2v2. The downside, of course, is with creep, you can't actually throw down any pylons or any other setup, but I wonder if something like that would be viable. That or just the fact that Fluffy is just stuck at home against all these Phoenixes. Nidus is going to be dealt with. As if barely is going to go down with that final volley. Likewise, once again, the Phoenixes, they bust in. More probe kills. I'm afraid to look how many workers have we lost so far. 37. 37 probes have gone down. A mothership has arrived. Nidus gets dealt with. And despite the fact that we have 9 swarm hosts, really, I believe we only had one swarm host wave. 1 locust wave, I should say. Yo, let's go. Nidus on the tank. Goblin, he does notice. Yeah, they notice in time. There's the on siege. Nidus gets dealt with. I was about to say, I mean, considering that locust waves can traverse over terrain, we should have been seeing Nidus Storms here at the 4th base location at the gold. Now finally on the way, but I feel like we have, it's been quite some time since the Swarmhosts have tried to pay for themselves or gain any value. Hellions dealt with. Inks into the mineral line. Nice borrow. Yo, I'm loving the borrow micro here out of Peekaboo. Let's go. Saves his turns. Oh no! But the Locust Wave, it gets spent. The A move. Ay. He's gonna spend here on the Hellions. Nice cloak. Goblin, he defends. Shuts down the army. Peekaboo has to pull away. But yeah, the borrow micro. It's beautiful. So Hellions are cleaned up. So Fluffy being active. Rotating around. This entire time, uThermal's been building up that tank count. That's a lot of tanks. Not going to be easy to push into. Carrier production has begun. This is the ideal. What we mentioned earlier, the ideal matchup or kind of composition here in a 2v2 is Skytoss and Mech. We're getting there. Focus over the main army. This time, Cloak is not available. Fluffy pushing in. There's the Cloak though. Yeah, Cloak gets activated with that Goblin. They hold. Do you hold on? Zerg gets sniped. But they hold the line. Behind this, a little bit concerned with the lack of fourth base for the Zerg. But at least the Protoss is expanding, getting his 4-base setup. Once again, Nidus into the main. I'm loving the Warp in his ult to protect the Nidus Worm. Yeah, the Nidus Worm is going to be saved. But will it matter? And will it finish, actually? Barely does, but that's not able to make use of it. Nidus goes down. uThermal and Goblin, they defend. They do defend. But I love the teamwork. I appreciate it. Hellions, they bust into the mineral line. Once again, they roast up most of the workers. 10 probes going down. Locust straight towards that center expansion. Can he get the Nexus? Up! So close. So close, barely doesn't. Oh, and has Goblin gone out of control? As he finally breaks out. Again, Goblin has only been harassing with his Phoenixes, and it's not just Goblin uThermal as well. Here comes the Mass on Siege. How many tanks? How many? 22. 22 tanks for uThermal. We have 4 carriers, 11 Phoenixes, and they've amassed a death bull of an army. Both Peekaboo and Fluffy, they've been doing well harassing, but barely not well enough. I mean, we did mention that so many Nidus Swarms were denied, so many Locust Waves were denied as a result as well. As we use defensively, that's a lot of Locusts. They do file in. The Protoss army trying to come in from behind, but the tank volleys, oh my god! The Archons, they just get annihilated. The Stalkers as well. The tanks are just, they prove too much to handle. He shuts down the Stalker army. And with that, uThermal and Goblin, they're breaking through. They're breaking through. Pushing into the natural. Once again, I love the bow. Saving the army itself. Unfortunately, I can't say the same here for Fluffy. As the Stalkers get lifted, tanks move in. I'm waiting for the scan. Do they notice? Doesn't matter. GG gets called. As the tanks, they do start to step in, and Goblin and uThermal, they tie up the series 1-1. GG. GG, well played. A much more classic setup where we have both uThermal and Goblin being more defensive overall. Yes, harassing with Hellions and harassing with almost said Banshees. With Phoenixes, that is true, but for the most part, just maintaining their position back at home, slowly expanding, slowly getting their third base, dealing with all the Nidus Worms. You could argue that maybe the Peekaboos, the Zerg player, was maybe a little bit too ambitious with his Nidus Worms. As you mentioned, took a long time for the Nidus Worms to be thrown down outside of the bases. We saw just so many attempted Niduses into the main. The first one was successful, but maybe that kind of, tempted him to just keep trying to go for it, and alas, didn't quite pay for itself. With that, for quite some time, the Storm hosts were just not really doing anything. They were just stuck in the Nidus Worms and not really able to add any value to the fight or to the game for a long time. Likewise, the Phoenix harass was brutal. It was brutal, and Fluffy was also struggling there as well. GG. GG well played. With that, this does take us into the ace match, into game 3. How does the story end, and who will make it through? It's going to be on Breakwater. I don't think I've seen this map before. Yeah, again, like, especially with the new revamped 2v2 ladder map pool, I'm woefully unfamiliar. I knew Emerald City, at least. But here we go, spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have our duo. We have the Terran player from the Netherlands. We have the Protoss from Croatia. It is uThermal and Goblin. And in the top right-hand corner, we have their opponents. We have our Protoss and our Zerg. It is Fluffy and Peekaboo. Alright, what's going on here? What's... Okay, interesting setup, as we have a shared main base once again, which is what we expect from a lot of these 2v2 maps. Not all, but a lot of them. Meanwhile, the natural is more open, is more exposed. There is no ramp here on the right-hand side. There is a second entry point towards the left where there is a ramp, and once again, similarly to Emerald City, I do appreciate that both Goblin and uThermal, they're kind of picking their own locations, and they are walling up. So they do kind of split up their forces, they do wall up. Behind this, we do have our initial hatch gas pool opener from our Zerg. And our eventual gate expand. Oh, never mind. That is a 2-gate opener. Okay, 2-gate opener out of Fluffy, something a little bit more assertive, something more aggressive. Likewise, speaking of aggressive, we have a 2-axe opener out of uThermal. You have my attention. Let's go. Are we going 2-axe Reaper? Potentially. As our players are securing themselves. And we have a much more aggressive and more active start to the game. Oh, my apologies. I mean, yes, it is 2-Rax Reaper, but not just that. We have a 3rd Rax on the way, so 3-Rax Reaper here out of uThermal. Much more committed, much more aggressive. Bearing in mind, this is not an all-in. This is not an all-in. uThermal can still expand behind this, but the goal here is to wreak havoc, get some economic damage, deny the 3rd expansions, and to keep the 2 players busy here. Meanwhile, Goblin, likewise, I didn't quite notice myself, 2-gate opener as well. So Goblin, he's going to be meeting uThermal here with his aggression and joining him with his own, with double adept production. 2 adepts on the way. Interesting that Fluffy did open 2 gates, going for 2 stalkers at a time. Interesting. 3rd gateway's on the way for the red Protoss. Checking their vision, they have scouted the Raxes. They are aware of the aggression coming their way. And we need to prepare. Additional gateways, link production, link speed as well, still on the horizon. First Reaper moving out. First Reapers, they do poke in. Going for the Queen. Queen taking a lot of hits. Still no links on the way from the Zerg side of things. Bold move, considering what they've scattered so far. As Fluffy does zone away. The power of the 4 stalkers, true. Adepts, they do shade past. And there we go. 14 links are in production, but the Adepts, they make their way into the mineral line. Nice wall off. Fluffy buying time. At the same time, Reapers, they dive into the mineral line. Drone's going to be going down. And the Zerg player is exposed. Peekaboo is not ready for this. He did cut link production. Queen goes down, and drones as well. And they do gang up on Peekaboo. They're bullying him, Pat. Oh, leave him alone. As Reaper does rally in, Adepts, they shade into the main. More drones going to be falling. And Peekaboo was just a little bit too greedy here, delaying his link production for so long. Was vulnerable, wasn't able to buy time. And as the dust settles, how many workers did he lose? He lost 10. Oh, 10 drones went down. 5 workers for Fluffy as well. But now link speed kicks in, and now Peekaboo has gained map control. He's racing across the map. Likewise, uThermal, he backs up. That's a lot of Reapers. He has not stopped. Usually by this point, we would stop Reaper production and go for add-ons and go for stim, combat shields into marine production. +1 attack is on the way. 2 more Raxes. uThermal, he is committing to mass Reaper. He's going to be committing here. Falling back. Lings, they flooded the force field. Oh, very nicely done here by Goblin. Oh, the Burrow. I forgot that Burrow was researched so quickly. Burrow saves the Lings, at least some of them. Let's go. That was a quick Burrow as well. That was as the force fields they get through there, they shut down some of the stalkers. But here comes around the unburrow as well. But there's not enough Lings. Not enough Lings, not enough support. Immortals, they come down. And uThermal and Goblin, they will be able to defend. They shut down the army. The Stalkers, the Lings, and from here they can counterattack. And there's almost nothing left. Stalkers have to get the hell out of here. Behind this, we had a proxy gateway. Yeah, just a one-base 4-gate all in. Likewise, Peekaboo barely has the economy as well. And similarly to game 1 with the failed aggression, I mean, both uThermal and Goblin, they have their bases. They have their bases getting saturated. They have better income. Reapers are cleaned up. And we're still all in. Like, we're still... there's still no expansion. Not from the Protoss, at least. But he's pushing into 3 Immortals. Oh, we could try to force field. We could try to slice up this army. There is potential. If Fluffy can bait the army out. And then force field the choke point. Lings are still on the way. He goes down. Goblin being so patient, still not baited out. Not yet. Just building up more reinforcements. Likewise, still Mass Reaper from uThermal. Ah, no. Yo, we have the borrowed Ling on the high ground. The attention to detail. But Goblin and uThermal, they do break out. Force fields do make it awkward to engage. Lings are coming from behind. Yeah, this round is set up. Getting us over the Immortals. Very nice engage here from the Protoss Zerg duo. But despite that, the control is too good. The Immortals get saved. Nice more prism control here from Goblin. Saves the army. Despite that, I believe Fluffy, his main Stalker army, still has been able to maintain himself. Still built up. Up. Does force field, catching a Stalker. Meanwhile, this entire time, Peekaboo, he's 122 drones. Just 22 workers. And just mass Ling. As he's finally droning. Finally making workers. And Fluffy, he finally expands as well. Yo, are we getting a longer game? Are we... Is this happening? I mean, I'm still somewhat concerned. I mean, for the most part, Goblin is scaling well. Goblin has been building up and preserving his Immortals, and his army is getting stronger and stronger over time. Thankfully, I will say, for the Zerg and Protoss duo, uThermal has been sticking with purely Mass Reaper, and I'll be honest, I'm not too convinced that it scales amazingly into a longer game state. I mean, despite that, the KDA charges, they shut down the army. Very nice engage. As uThermal does intercept. And hey, the Reapers, they find their place. I'm still not in love with the idea of just going purely Mass Reaper, but it's fine. Lings, they do get into the mineral line. They do slip in. SCV is going down. Thermal chasing down the Stalkers. And not the worst trades. So Lings are being cleaned up back at home. And can Fluffy maintain that natural? Again, it's on the low ground, it's exposed, out in the open. He needs an expansion. Someone give him money. As he's running out of minerals in the main. Yeah, the natural, it's gonna go down. Yeah, the backbone of this army is brutal. I'm referring to Goblin here. With those 4 Immortals. And I'm not so sure they can be stopped. Lings, they catch out the Reapers, they at least try to. Boys being pulled as well. And here comes Goblin to clean up. It breaks through the main army. Boys are being pulled. And there's just not much to defend. I mean, they just didn't have the economy for it. GG gets called. And with that, uThermal and Goblin, they will take the series 2-1. GG. GG, well played. They did take the series, but a shout out to Fluffy and Peekaboo, because even though they are lesser known players, even though they're not pros by any means, they made a series out of this, and it does feel like they're very much so experienced in 2v2. I mean, that's the thing here, when you throw in a bunch of like pro 1v1 players into a very different format, there are certain things that are different here, and certain advantages and disadvantages, whether it comes to the meta, when it comes to how armies work together, how they can kind of I was almost going to say coexist, but how they can sync up. And yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun, and I do appreciate how they approached this matchup, and they made a series out of it as well. There was definitely potential. Alas, they were eventually overwhelmed, and GG, well played. In the end, uThermal and Goblin, they do advance on into the next round, where they're going to be facing off against their next opponents, against the Taiwanese team of Lemon and Deer. Let's go.